morning, everybody. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talks Sunday Stream of Consciousness. Great to have you with me here this morning. Lots to talk about. What a whirlwind weekend, rivalry weekend in college football. We got some news in the NFL to chat about. We got coaching news to talk about a little bit in college football. We'll look at the coaching situations in the NFL as well. A little bit of Major League Baseball. Definitely, we got a couple of passings to talk about in Major League Baseball as well. Maybe a little NBA. Why are we playing in-season tournament? Now, why do I have to look at these crazy courts that give me an epileptic fit? Maybe we'll talk a little college basketball and look at the standings there as well if we have some time. We haven't done that yet. And we'll get into all of that after I welcome everybody here on TGI Sports Talk, Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are, Twitter later on. We're live on Let's Talk Sports on YouTube. Check out Let's Talk Sports. Go there to YouTube and ring the bell. Subscribe. Lots of great content there. Doing a great job picking up for our boy Dan Dave Harris. Thumbs up, DDH. Always here, always loved. And, of course, Northeast Streaming Sports, where we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and on the Roku app. So if you go to Roku channel, look for Northeast Streaming Sports app. You can download it. You can watch this show live when it's live, and my college football show plays Saturday mornings after it's live on Wednesdays. Plus, there's tons of great content. Mac is doing a great job. Mac and Linda are doing a great job of scheduling 7 days a week of new content. So great job by those guys. As I said, we're going to get into a lot of stuff. Oh, also, quick shout out to Ralph Williams over there at RW Media. Specifically, he does a lot of great content, but specifically the Sports Corner, which he does with Smokin' Jim Frazier every I lost my note. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. They talk about everything in the world of sports, and that's on WVBP in Pittsburgh. I don't have the call letters. 12:30 a.m. I know, and I'm going to say 99.3 FM. I should know this, but now I read it all the time for Ralph, my boy. All right, guys, lots to talk about today. We're going to get into the big rivalry week games and the impact that they had on college football. Then how it'll affect the poll this week, and I'll give you my picks. Only 7 teams left with a shot here, I think. What's going to be interesting, and I didn't slot them in, is where I got to slot them in yet. Ohio State losing to Michigan yesterday. So, good morning, SCA. How are you today? Blessed Sunday to you. Rick Sherlock, good morning. Good to have you back from the Comic-Con security. Hope there was no serious issues with those people. Good morning, Anthony. Good to have you with us as always. And by the way, Anthony, since we chatted, Jack Del Rio did get fired. I think since we chatted on Friday. And good morning, Dave Guy out there in Johnstown, New York. Good to have you with us. Dave, guys, lots of great football yesterday. I mean, we're going to go through these scores, but a couple of quick notes that come to mind. Michigan continues to be resilient in the middle of this Harbaugh situation. It does look right now. It looks like he'll be coaching next week in the Big Ten championship game. The last drive they had before they kicked the field goal, you say it was over 7 minutes. They can grind it out. That's what great teams do. You know, you have to throw the football, but you finish out games by running the ball, and they do it great. And on the other side, Ryan Day going to be feeling the heat today. Lots of it, as he's lost now 3 in a row to Michigan State and theoretically Jim Harbaugh, right? What else was happening yesterday? Georgia with a good win over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech played a game, played gamely. Florida State, I think, really helped themselves yesterday. Not a good Florida team, but a big rivalry nonetheless. And anything can happen in these games, as we saw yesterday. A lot of close calls. Florida State, I think, without their starting quarterback, theoretically a Heisman candidate, probably not going to get there, but we'll talk about the Heisman in a second. They played great. They were down 12-0 in this game and came back and won. Not going away, but the defense was great. Versus the former Albany State player, Versus played really well. I like this team because they played. I think they're a really good football team overall. Running the football, they play well up front. They play pretty good special teams, and they make stops when they have to. And this team, I think they got to be Louisville next week, who loses yesterday to Kentucky. Bad loss. Kentucky playing under the cloud too of big time rumors that Texas A&M was going to hire a coach by the end of this weekend, and it was going to be Mark Stoops. And Mark Stoops says now, of course, take this with a grain of salt, guys. He says he's not going. We'll see if that happens or not. What else? Alabama sneaks one out with an unbelievable third and what was it? Fourth and 36, I think it was, right? 4th and 36 to be able to get in position to kick the game-winning field goal. They go to overtime. Anything can happen in that game. So big win for Bama over Auburn. I thought Auburn would give them a tussle in Jordan-Hare. They've won 4 of the last 8 that were played in Auburn, and Hugh Freeze's team fought hard. And congratulations to them. Washington barely sneaks that one. Again, against Washington State, who's not been playing well. But these rivalry games, again, you just got to be careful. Oregon, on the other side of that, Oregon blows out. Oh, by the way, Washington State have signed an extension to keep that rivalry going, even with Washington leaving. Oregon, on the flip side of these rivalry games being tight, they blow out Oregon State, who's coached, by the way, Jonathan Smith took the Michigan State job yesterday. And I think these coaches need to stay out the season. I have a question as we're talking about college football. Dino Babers, before I go on here, again, stream of consciousness, right? Dino Babers, a former coach at Syracuse, as we all know, was fired after the game last week. The school said he could stay on and coach. He's been getting ripped on the Syracuse chat pages, group chats on Facebook, social media, Twitter. Social media is Twitter. Twitter is social media. He's getting ripped for not doing that, letting the kids he recruited down. I get that argument to a point, but I just got fired. The school told me they don't want me around. I don't know if I want to stick around. You know, this is different than a coach who took a job like Jonathan Smith. We'll see whether he coaches in the bowl game. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So we'll see what happens there. We'll go through all the scores here in a little bit. I know I had some comments I wanted to get to. Some good morning. Good morning, Kenny. Up on what's the temperature up there? We had a cold morning, man. We had some frost on the pumpkins this morning. Rick, I saw him in a trench coat, sunglasses, and fake mustache on the sidelines. I think that I saw that guy. I think it was Bobby Valentine. By the way, if you think he didn't have some contact somewhere during the course of this game, you're probably crazy. But he can't be in the stadium. Couldn't come and celebrate with the team. The suspension was through yesterday, not the end of yesterday's game. It was through yesterday, so he couldn't even come and celebrate with his team. And by the way, the one downside of this expansion to 12 teams next year, which I'm all for. One of the downsides is, and people will argue that regular season games don't mean as much. I think they will mean more because more teams will have chances at playoff spots. Maybe players will play. Maybe coaches will coach. But this Ohio State-Michigan game is not ever probably going to mean as much as yesterday's game meant. They will have no divisions next year. Both of these teams could be theoretically in Indianapolis playing in the Big Ten championship game going forward after this year. Iowa has won the right to get killed by Michigan next week. So that's the one downside. Again, I see mostly pros. This is one of the few cons. So Kneecap biting with the Motor City Lions. Good morning. Good to have you with us, buddy. Sorry your Lions lost on Thanksgiving. Tough game there. Let me ask you this, because I'm on college football for the moment, bud. What a lot of other college coaches in the rumors now. I talked about Mark Stoops for Texas A&M. I still think there could be a huge offer in the offering for Dan Campbell to potentially go back to his alma mater. The money, if you want to be, if you're going to coach, college football is a place to do it if you want to make money. Dan Campbell's done a really good job in Detroit. He may want to stay there and see if he can finish that job, but they're going to be a lure to go back to his alma mater and try to win a national championship there and get very well paid to do it. So I'm curious what your thoughts are there. Kenny, Alabama. I know you shouldn't let the refs beat you. True. But they did a good job and almost cost Alabama the game. I agree. Listen, when I say this, there is bad calls. There's definitely bad refereeing. I've never claimed that there isn't. My claim is, always, you can't put yourself in that position to get beat by bad calls and referees. I mean, I've gotten beat by them, whether it's my team or whether it's on a bet, but it's different. It's a little different for me when I'm betting. If I'm betting, then it costs me the game because I wasn't involved. But yes, there's a lot of bad refereeing. There was a play in the Michigan-Ohio State game. You want to talk about bad refereeing? That last, God, who was the guy? That last, and I realize Motor City there might be a Michigan fan too. But on that last drive by Michigan, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I think it was number 6. It was a very short, third down and 3 or 4, maybe 5. And McNamara completes a pass to him. I have never in my life, this is on Michigan's last drive where they ran 7 or more minutes off the clock, kicked a field goal. I've never seen as blatant a push off as I saw here. The guy, I've never seen a guy just extend his arms, basically knock the guy over, and that not be called pass interference. So again, there's bad officiating everywhere. The kneecap biting. I don't get these fans that rip a coach for not wanting to coach his team after being fired. I agree. I think Dino Babers is a good coach. I think Dino Babers will coach again, probably, certainly below the Power 5 level. But why should he? I mean, you don't want me around. I get it. We're going to let you stay for your kids. And it's, I don't know what I would do. I got to be in that situation. Do your old job to cheer them on when you're fired. Yeah, I feel the same way. I get it. There's a lot of guys who stay. And some guys aren't given the opportunity to stay. But I think Dino Babers is being really, if you read the Syracuse bulletin boards, man, these fans are all over him. He gave you everything he had for 7 years. He gave you a couple of good seasons. He gave you some great moments, even in some of the bad seasons. Syracuse is not an easy place to win anymore. Can't recruit. Speaking of recruiting, I read a story this morning that Ryan Day's biggest mistake in this game didn't happen during the game. It happened during recruiting. The guy, he's done a great job of developing quarterbacks that are tremendous college quarterbacks. And obviously in the case of CJ Stroud, go on to can be NFL quarterbacks, contrary to what Kenny thinks. We finally got one. Well, it's not contrary to what Kenny thinks. Ohio State's quarterbacks have not historically flourished on the NFL level, which is not Ryan Day's job, by the way, to develop NFL quarterbacks. But he took Wells, and he was recruiting another guy named J.J. McCarthy, and decided on this way I read it, decided on Wells. Probably not a great move there, based on what we saw yesterday. If he's suspended for the game, can he still meet the team in the locker room? No, the way I understood it yesterday, listening to the talking heads in the morning, He was suspended for the entire day. He could not be anywhere near the stadium all day yesterday. So he could not celebrate with his team either on the field or in the locker room, the way I understood it. I'm sure they celebrated afterwards somewhere, somehow. 3 games in 10 days, 10 days fatigue look to play the part. For the Lions, I think you're talking about, right? I agree. And they shot themselves in the foot. I mean, Jason Goff is a capable quarterback for that team when he doesn't make mistakes. He's not a guy who's going to overcome a lot of mistakes. And he made a lot of mistakes and turned the ball over, did not take care of the football. So tough game for the Lions, tough loss for the Lions. And Jordan Love, we'll be talking about this in the NFL segment more, but Jordan Love looked really good. Is that official, though? And I'll take your word for it because I'm sure out there in Detroit you're closer to the situation than I am. Did they make an official offer and he said no, or did he just say don't even bother talking to me? I still wonder. Again, here's the thing you got to remember about coaches. Don't believe what they say. Nick Saban said he wasn't going to Alabama over and over and over again for months when he had the Miami job. I'm not sure I believe Mark Stoops yesterday when he said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here in Kentucky. Mark Stoops is one of my favorite college coaches. He's done a great job at Kentucky with less to work with than anybody in that. Well, not anybody, but most of the halves in the SEC has done a great job at competing. But the resources at Kentucky and the resources at A&M are like this. So I'm not sure I believe yet. You're going to have some other names come up yet. They're going to talk to Lance Leopold. I've heard they may talk to Jamie Chadwell out there, Liberty, who, congratulations, Liberty completed an undefeated season yesterday. Tulane completed an undefeated season yesterday. We'll play SMU in the AAC championship game. Those 3 teams are likely in play for the group of 5 New Year's Day Bowl bid, which I believe will be the Cotton Bowl. I'm not sure if it's always a Cotton Bowl or it'll still rotate. I have no idea. But again, it's hard to believe. And again, I'm not saying Dan Campbell will go. I think he'd be the right guy. And obviously, if he turned them down, they thought he was the right guy. So I don't know if it was an official offer. Just remember, coaches speak, and you know that they're giving you misinformation when their mouths are moving. I've seen lots of coaches say, I'm not going there, and the next day they're there. Why is everybody saying Michigan will destroy Iowa? Why? Come on, Kenny. Listen, I like Kurt Franz. Have you watched an Iowa game this year? There's defenses in high school that could stop that team. Terrible. Their offense is just atrocious. And watch them against bad teams like Nebraska. They struggle to score 15 points a game. Their defense is really good. And Michigan will struggle. They're a solid team. Personally, I want Iowa to win. That's fine. I mean, you can personally want them to win. I don't know how much of a frenzy you would throw it into. I mean, again, you've got 7 teams that are worthy. 8 teams, sorry, because I left Ohio State out of here. I got to figure out where I'm slotting them. I'm probably slotting Iowa State. Right now, I might slot ahead of Texas and Alabama, but I'm not slotting them ahead of Washington or Oregon or Florida State. I'm not leaving them in the top 4. The committee might, but if you're not even going to play in your conference championship game, sorry, no. So there's probably 8 teams with a realistic chance. It's not going to be a lot of frenzy because nobody, they could lose and help Alabama get in. They could lose and help get Texas in. Maybe even a 1-loss Washington team maybe gets in if Michigan were to lose that game. My guess is Michigan will get a bid. If Michigan loses this game, unless they're embarrassed, they'd still get a bid. We've seen this before. I'm giving them a bid over Ohio State for sure. Problem is, except for Ohio State, the schedule is not that tough for either one of those teams. Exactly. If your team plays to their potential, the refs cannot change the trajectory of the game. They can affect certain. Yes. If you play as well as you should, you're right. I forget your first name, Kneecap. I'm going to call you Kneecap from here on out. Yes, a play can happen that costs you the game on the scoreboard, but you haven't played, as he says, to your potential if a referee's call can beat you. Cornelius Johnson, thank you. Yes, big kid, nice player, made another great catch, I thought, on that drive as well. But that was just a blatant push off. I mean, there's not more. That's a textbook case of offensive pass interference, and they let it go. So refereeing on both levels is a little crappy. I was surprised Arch Manning played because the talk was that they had redshirted him. So apparently they did not. So this year counts against him. And it was a treat to see him play. He played very, very well. He did show what he could have been as a starter, and probably better than Ewins. So it isn't Jerry Ewing, but I know who you mean, Kenny. I made a comment on the Jamak and Jack show that I don't know if I'd be shocked if Arch started the game next week. It'd be a ballsy move by Sarkisian. And if they get off to a sluggish start, you might see him as well. They need to beat Oklahoma State, and they probably need to have some style points doing it. Because when we start comparing these one-loss teams, they could end up being compared with Washington. They could be now they're going to have one if they win the Pac-12. I do think the championship gives you an edge. Some people don't think so, but they could be compared with a one-loss Alabama team. Although now I really think after yesterday, Alabama's in if they beat Georgia next week for sure. But they could be compared with Oregon. They're going to lose that comparison. So, again, I think Texas still needs some help, and they need some style points maybe to get in. Love the missed extra points. However, missed a kickoff return. Back to spot. Oh, you missed it. I missed. Listen, kickoff return is one of the most exciting plays in football. And for the most part, the NCAA and the NFL have eliminated the play from the playbook. There is none. Call a fair catch inside the 5, and you get the ball to 25. Make them run it out. I don't like it either. I don't know if moving the kick. Maybe you could move the kickers back 10 yards. But the problem is, these are the type of plays that the football and the NCAA is no smarter than the NFL in this. They eliminate exciting plays and eliminate things that they're dangerous plays. The kickoff is the most dangerous play in football. We know that. That's why the guys who play in the kickoff team are sometimes, the craziest, or maybe always the craziest. But in a sense of, and it's all cosmetics for these leagues. They want to look like they care about injuries. I don't necessarily think they care about injuries. But this is a cosmetic thing they do to make it look like they care about the student athletes. Kneecap will call BS. Ryan Day didn't develop C.J. Stroud. His high school coach was a former NFL backup quarterback, and he was developed when he got to OSU. I'm not going to argue that point. Because my comment always is to, people who say, well, he can't develop. He doesn't develop NFL quarterbacks. I've seen a lot of college coaches get that knock. That's not their job. Their job isn't to develop guys for the next level. Their job is to win games in college. And until Ryan Day beats Michigan, his job is, who knows what's going to happen there. Maybe Ryan Day leaves town for Texas A&M. Who knows? But I get it. obviously he's developed to a certain point, and I will say this to your point, Kneecap, Ryan Day may have reined CJ Stroud in too much. If in fact, we saw it in the Michigan game last year. He played way too conservative. That's why they didn't win last year in my mind. And then when he took the reins off CJ Stroud against Georgia in the playoff, now they lost the game, but CJ Stroud had the game of his college career in my mind. Dan addressed it in an interview. Okay. Again, I'm not saying he won't stay. Believe me. But when college coaches say, I'm not going anywhere, when coaches say they're not going anywhere, take it with a grain of salt until that job's filled. Nick Saban spent months saying that in Miami. Nick Saban's a goof. He is a bit of a goof, but he's also the greatest college coach of all time. There's no denying he's the greatest coach in college football history. There's been a lot of great coaches. Bear Bryant, Woody Hayes, John McKay. Nick Saban's on top of all of them. And don't tell me it's because he just, Alabama's just blah, blah, blah. Anybody could coach Alabama. No, anybody can't. Look at the coaches between Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. There's a bunch of them, and only one had any success, real success, on a national championship level. That was Gene Stallings one time. Mark Stoops has a 35-55 record as a coach. I don't think that's accurate. Maybe in the SEC. Now I got to look this up. Hang on one second. I got my coaches right here. Let's take a look. Whoops. What the hell? Where's my coaches? The coaches disappeared. All right. Let's look up Mark Stoops. And this might be his SEC record. If that's what you're saying, that's possible. But we're going to take a quick look right now because I think his record is much better than that, at least at Kentucky. And now you get to call me out as being wrong if I'm wrong here. That's always fun for guys. Overall, 73-64 overall. At Kentucky, he's all his coaching. Oh, you're talking about the SEC. All right. Conference 35-55. Also driven, though, by his first 3 years, let's remember. 0-8, 2-5, 2-6. He took over a disaster of a program, and he's also taken them to 5 straight, and it will be 6 straight bowl games. A couple of them pretty good bowl games. He went to the Citrus Bowl. He went to the Gator Bowl. Citrus Bowl twice. He's finishing the top 20 twice at a place nobody before him was winning. Bear Bryant won there, 75 years ago. I think he's a great coach. I didn't say, Kentucky was a national contender, but I think Mark Stoops has turned down several jobs. I've not heard about James Madison getting a bowl game. We'll look up that news, Anthony. The only way they could get one, according to the NCAA, is they did not have enough bowl-eligible teams. By the way, they finished with a big victory this week and will not get to play in their league championship game. James Madison football news. Let me just see what we got here. Good call, Anthony. Anthony, I believe this is 2 weeks in a row you've broken big news. JMU will play in a bowl game after they blow out Coastal Carolina, a good football team. At least the last several years, they will take the field again. There are a shortage of 6-6 teams. That's why the Dukes are 11-1. So we don't know what team they will play in. They won't get a chance to play in the Jacksonville State was in the same situation, I believe, and they're going to play in a bowl game. So. They won't play for the Sun Belt Conference title, which we'll talk about those title games in a little bit. But great job there, Anthony. 2 weeks in a row, I believe you have broken some great news. Good news for James Madison. I don't care what bowl game it is. One of the stupidest rules in the history of the NCAA, who has a long history of stupid rules, is the fact that when you move up to FBS 1, you cannot play for 2 years in postseason. Why? Is somebody coming up to dominate out of the lower division? And Iowa has no offense. Agreed. That's why Michigan, listen, this won't even be close. This game will not be close next week. I mean, depending on what you think close is. They could win this game by 17. I think they'll win by more like 3 touchdowns or more. Jeremy. Maybe I knew that, Jeremy. I'll probably forget it in 5 minutes. So I see him as a mid-day 2, early day 3 pick wide receiver-wise. Where are we? I'm trying to think who we were talking about. Oh, Johnson. Well, he's played with one of the best, because the best player in college football right now is Marvin Harrison. Best player in college football, Marvin Harrison. Not going to win the award. He's not going to win the Heisman. The more pedestrian look of the OSU offense this year held him back a bit. But there's going to be a lot of guys, and I said this morning when Jim, Jeffcoat, Mac, and Jack were talking about quarterbacks, NFL or some of these college quarterbacks. There's going to be a bunch of teams in the NFL that are going to take some of these quarterbacks over Marvin Harrison, and they'll be kicking themselves in a couple of years. Quinn Ewers, yes. What I say? Ewans? I did too, didn't I? Quinn Ewers, thank you, Jeremy. Mispronunciation is my shtick. Oh, gosh. What do I think of the Michigan State hire? I think it's a good hire. I don't know what will happen to the interim coach. And I've got a comment, too, about an interim coach right now in a little bit. But I think the hire is a good one. Johnson Smith's done a great job at Oregon State. Defense is really good. Clean program by all accounts. They needed somebody. He better be spotless after what they went through here with Mel Tucker. And, Mel Tucker, again, Mel Tucker's got to be maybe the stupidest college football coach of all time, because you got a 70 plus, well, maybe more. He might have still been at $80 million for his buyout. But he gave Michigan State all the ammunition they needed to fire him for cause. You can't get stupider than that. So I think the Jonathan Smith hire for Michigan State is a good one. And as far as the interim coach, whose name is escaping me, I do not think he could be back on the staff, but who knows? Speaking of interim coaches, Braun, the interim coach for Northwestern, has got the full-time gig, as I've been talking about for a few weeks. No better coaching job than what's gone on in Northwestern. They win yesterday to finish 6-4. They're going to a bowl game. No, they didn't finish 6-4. What are they? Hang on a second. Let me get to that's not where I'm trying to go. Oh, where'd all my, somebody got rid of all my pages. I want to see what the record is for Northwestern right now. 6-4 overall, or 7-5 overall is the team. 5-4 in the Big Ten. Nice win yesterday. They have done a great job. I thought this team, with all that, everything going on around this team, they'd win 2 games this year. Great job. They're going bowling. Great job. FSU needs to lose to Louisville. Listen, FSU's done a great job. Mike Norvell's done a great job the last year and 3 quarters when his job was on the line last year. This team showed some great resiliency. They've got a 5th-year senior playing quarterback, so it's not like he's got no experience. He's played a bit, not a lot. So obviously, certainly since Jordan Travis took over. But I'd like Florida State to beat Louisville. Louisville's too undisciplined for my taste, and I think Florida State will win. For Texas to get in, Louisville, again, I don't even know if that gets them in, to be honest with you. Let's see. So in your scenario, you'd have Michigan's in. Win or lose that game, Michigan's in. I think you can write it down. Michigan's in, even if they lose Iowa. They're not going to lose. Florida State, let's see, in your scenario, Florida State's out. Washington's in. So you got, I'm not even sure they're in that scenario, Jeremy, because you'd have Washington, you'd have Michigan. You're not even calling for Michigan to lose. You'd have Georgia. That's it, right? 1, 2, 3. No, I suppose you're right. Well, here's the thing. Oregon or Washington's getting in, not both. If Alabama wins, I've said all year you can't jump Texas because of the head-on-head victory for Texas, but it's so long ago that I don't know that it's going to be as big a factor as it would be if it were, 2 weeks ago. I think Alabama beats Georgia. They're going to jump a bunch of teams. Question is going to be, where's Ohio State gets ranked this week? I don't see any way they can get in, but it's going to be interesting to see where they get ranked this week. I got to drop them below every team that's playing in a conference championship game, which would mean all the way down to 8. I don't see them falling that far, but it's possible. CA, Michigan, Georgia, Oregon, FSU, or Texas. I still like Washington. I think Washington finds a way to win this Oregon game. I think that game's in Vegas, if I'm not sure. We'll look at the games here in just a second. I hate that they've taken away the blindside block. It's a good block. You just didn't see him coming. It's called head on a swivel. I look at, again, another rule that's put into, in their minds, protect players. And I get it to a certain extent, but you're taking away plays that have been used for decades. Guys get hurt on freaking field goal attempts. You can't take injury out of the game. It's a violent, dangerous sport. Players know it, coaches know it. And you can't legislate this stuff out of the game, or the game changes diametrically, and you cannot do that. Jeremy says there was a kneecap. I'm reading his name. There was a kickoff during the Detroit-Chicago game. The returner never called for fair coach, slipped and fell. The rest gave them the ball in 25. Luckily, Hutch got the strip sack and safety. So, again, referees. I mean, that happened. Guys see fair catches when there aren't fair catches. That happened to Iowa in the who the hell they played that day. They ended up losing the game. I was sick. It was when I was so sick. I was watching that game. I bet Iowa. And the guy did not call for a fair catch, and he ran back a long punt. I think they ran it back for a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. They called it back because they said his hand went up. His hand didn't go up. I'm not going to wait till they offer me $20 million. Dan Campbell and this staff, they have been very transparent and honest in their tenure here. It's been very refreshing, to say the least. Well, again, it would be refreshing if that's the case, and if he sticks to his word, I'm happy for him. The SEC record is not. Again, it's really tainted, or not tainted, or it's the word I want to use. It's really skewed a bit, Jeremy, by the early years of his tenure there. This team was atrocious. He's done a good job. He's made that team very competitive, and he's beat some good teams. Anthony still believes Ohio State's season was going to fail because of their quarterback. He did, and then ultimately it did, because Wells, who again played basically mistake-free football most of the year, that was his job. Game manager, as we call it today. He did a very good job, but he's not the guy you necessarily went out there when you got to go 80 yards with no timeouts and 1:20 left. He did a good job getting them to where he got them in midfield, and he throws a costly interception when they still had a chance to win that game. And I think it's interesting, very interesting, that according to reports, Ryan Day chose Wells over McCarthy as he was in the recruiting process. So it's interesting to hear stories like that. Doesn't a kid need to play in 4 games to be considered a redshirt? The rules have changed. You can redshirt a kid up to like week 7 now, but you can't have played. You can only have played X amount. You can't play 7 games. And I don't know what the number is now, Kenny. Somebody can kind of look it up if they want. I don't want to spend more time looking that up, but they have changed the rules a bit, and maybe they can still redshirt them. I don't know. But you can't like go the whole year, I don't think, and not play and then redshirt them. Maybe you can. It was the only scenario I see them getting in. There's a couple probably. I mean, the scenarios have shrunk. I mean, there were tons of scenarios here the last few weeks, obviously. And what's interesting is still none of the top 9 teams, other than the one that played somebody else in the top 9, lost again yesterday. And I think since the first poll, if I'm not mistaken, since the first poll, the top 8 have won every week, unless somebody played somebody in the same slot. So there hasn't been a ton of movement in this poll like there have been in other years with teams moving up quickly. Some of these teams just had no shot to jump up the Tulanes of the world. Tulane doesn't lose to Ole Miss early in the year. I'm interested to see where they're ranked. Again, if Grant had different equipment, she'd be your uncle, right? But sorry, it's an old bad joke. They play without their starting quarterback. They were very competitive for over 3 quarters. But I don't know, they would not have had the same chance Cincinnati had a few years ago, because you didn't have the volatility at the top. I mean, these teams have been winning week in and week out. I mean, the only team that's lost before yesterday, the only teams that have lost in the top 8 since the initial, I'm not even sure Oregon would count. Oregon may be one of those teams when they lost to Washington. That might have been the week before the initial poll. I can't remember now. But the only teams that could possibly have lost in the top 8 since the first poll would have been Oregon and Ohio State yesterday. I would think Oregon is favored to beat Washington. They might have been favored the last time, Anthony, at Washington. Oregon's playing great football. I really wasn't impressed with the teams they'd beaten necessarily until this week. Oregon State's a really good football team. It's a really good defense. They were a little undermanned this week, but they just manhandled them for sure. You think Ohio State falls to 7 or 8? I can see that, because I can't make an argument, as they're not going to a championship game. They have no chance to improve their record. So they have no chance in my mind to get to the playoff now. I can't see putting them ahead of, certainly not ahead of any of the unbeaten teams. We know that. Certainly not ahead of Oregon. Certainly not ahead of Texas. And I'm not putting them ahead of Alabama. So I could see them 8th. Yeah. So I'm assuming if you say 7th or 8th, the only team you can see possibly below them in the top 8 is Alabama. Pac-12 is in Vegas. cost them the game. Not sure which comment we're talking about there. I'm guessing. I'm not sure which one. 1-18 against ranked opponents. Well, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys with bad records against ranked opponents. See James Franklin at Penn State. See Lane Kiffin, one of my favorites, at Mississippi. They cannot have played their 5th game. So at any point, and again, this rule changed a few years back. So Arch Manning's only been, I think, in 2 games. So we're saying right now Texas could still redshirt him. He could play in a Texas. So if that's true, I'm thinking he could play next week. He wouldn't be able to play in 2 playoff games, though, right? He could play next week and still get redshirted. Ohio State might drop. I thought there was after a certain week also you could not redshirt guys. Again, I could be wrong. Ohio State might drop to 6. So, Anthony, you're saying, so in your scenario, you've got them behind, let's see, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. I'm sorry, Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Oregon. You got them right behind Oregon and ahead of Texas and Alabama. I can't see doing that. How do I rationalize that when I got these 2 teams that also with 1 loss, probably played a better schedule overall, at least Alabama. Or comparable, and they're going to their conference championship games next week. I can't do it. Oregon should have won the first meeting, except the coach forgot to turn on his brain. Again, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Right? You win the games. It doesn't matter at the end of the day how you lost games. All that matters is Washington has had a lot of close calls this year and won them all. And Dan Lanning, God bless him. I'll certainly rip him for not going on 4th down at the end of the half. That was silly. Kick the field goal. But the call at the end of the game, the 4th down call, in my mind, I make that every time. End the game. You play to win. You play to win. You don't play not to lose, because you lose every time. And he would have got ripped no matter what he did that 3rd time he went down on 4th down. And I know most people have an argument with the first 2 times he went for 4th down. Dan Lanning's a great football coach, and I'm not going to second guess him. He knows his team. He knows what's best for his team. And especially at the end of the game, I show confidence in my team and say, let's end it right here. Great stuff, though, guys. 5, Oregon, 6, Ohio State, 7, Texas. I can't put Ohio State ahead of Texas and Alabama. I just can't do it. Alabama must stay ahead because they have a path. Yeah, they got a path from 8, probably. The history says you can jump a bunch of teams next week. I think Alabama wins and they're in. I don't care where they are. Ohio State did their usual thing and now should be out of conversation. No, they are out of the conversation. I don't care where they rank them this week, Kenny. That's just, conversation for, whatever. How far do you drop them? Doesn't really matter because they're going to have 0 shot to move up. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, if for some reason they see if for some reason this committee, and you never know what these committees are going to do, if they see fit to put them 5 and you get Georgia losing in front of you, Michigan losing in front of you, Washington losing in front of you, and Florida State losing in front of you, God knows what could happen. Now you could have the frenzy that you wanted, Kenny. I think I say Ohio State 6 because of their schedule was tougher. Yeah, but again, how can we put them in a spot where we might consider them to get to the top 4 when they don't even play in their conference championship game? I know we've seen it happen, but I think it's ridiculous. And we won't have this argument next year. That's the good part of the 12 teams, right? I talked about a downside of the 12 earlier with that Michigan-Ohio State game maybe never meaning as much as it meant yesterday again. But with the 12 teams, all of these teams will have a shot. I mean, with a 12-team playoff, and again, and I know John DeLon's not with us today, my resident SEC elitist. There's not going to be a 3-loss team. If it were a 12-team playoff this year, you would not see a 3-loss team in it. If Alabama wins, Georgia may only drop to 4th. That's possible. And again, it depends, I think, on what happens elsewhere, right? Michigan wins, they're not going to they'll be in. Washington wins, they'll be in. Florida State, they'll be in. If that happens, then Georgia's got no shot. You cannot put a 1-loss non-conference championship team ahead of undefeated conference championship teams. So if Michigan, Washington, Florida State all win, unless you're saying they're not going to move Alabama ahead of Georgia, which can't happen. In that case, it's going to be Alabama with the 4th spot and the 3 undefeateds ahead of them. Remember, money draw is the second biggest thing. Well, it might be the first biggest thing, but any of the teams we're talking about, it isn't going to matter. Didn't Ohio State jump a few years ago? The year they won the national championship under Urban Meyer, they jumped from like 7 to 4 the last week. Passed, I believe, TCU. It was a big stink that year. That is a situation that keeps a few 1-loss teams out. Alabama beats Georgia, but you doubt it. I think Georgia is going to win that game. Again, I'm on record. No matter what I say during these scenarios, potential scenarios, I've been on record as saying Georgia is going to win their 3rd consecutive national championship and become only the 2nd team to do so. So you're saying Georgia loses a game to a non-top 5 team and still ranked higher than Ohio State? Yeah, because they lost her. Yes, because they lost in their championship game, Anthony. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. So, guys, I'm going to step away for just a second. Don't go anywhere. Put those thinking caps on. And I will be right back after this quick break. Oh. All right, guys, we're back. Sorry about that. Got to turn my camera off, too. So where were we? Yeah, so back to Anthony's question. Where's Anthony's question again? We got a lot of... let's see. I thought... There we go. So, again, this is a scenario that won't happen anymore with a 12-team playoff, right? They'll play it out on the field. Ohio State's definitely going to be one of the highest ranked teams after the 6 or 5, I guess, next year, automatic bids. So from here on, we get to play it on the field. What else we got here? Fonda, yes, congratulations to the Fonda Fultonville Braves. Still the Braves, not the Valley Hawks or whatever the hell they would rename their team. God, I'm so tired of this stuff. Ugh. Anyway, I think they're still the Braves this year. I don't know whether there was an immediate change to their name, but they are going to the Carrier Dome to play in a state championship. So congratulations to the Fonda Fultonville Braves team here in upstate New York, high school team here in upstate New York. I always wonder what the hell CA's putting up there. The king of the emojis. Anthony, it's Alabama. What are you talking about? I'm not sure where the... You're saying Georgia lose to a top 5 team. Yeah, well, I see what Kenny's saying. It's Alabama. And probably... Listen, it's possible... No, I don't think it's Alabama. It's possible Ohio State falls behind Alabama anyway. Ironically, you taking a break during a college football discussion are both saying to me. Well, Drew, in a few weeks this won't be taking quite as long. Drew with his Drew witticisms. Anyway, real quick, I want to take a look at the next week's college matchups, and then we'll move on to some NFL, but we can certainly jump back and forth. Next week in the here we go. We got to get to the schedule. Friday in the USA Championship. You got New Mexico State at undefeated Liberty. Liberty at 25, still trying to get that New Year's Day bowl game. That goes to the top-ranked team in the group of 5. New Mexico State playing good football, just beat Auburn 2 weeks ago, and Auburn gave Alabama everything they could handle last week. And the matchup, one of the big matchups, Friday on ABC at 8 o'clock, it'll be Oregon at Washington. That's number 6 at number 4. It is in Vegas, so, of course, most of these teams are played at a neutral site now. At AT&T Stadium in Arlington, you're going to get Oklahoma State, number 20 at number 7, Texas. Again, huge playoff ramifications. And the MAC, no playoff ramifications. I do think Toledo really ought to be in the play for this New Year's Day bowl game. They've had a great season. I believe they won 10 or 11 in a row now. They're going to play Miami of Ohio. That game will be at Ford Field. In Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, home of the kneecapper, Jeremy. Georgia, number 1 Georgia, plays a number 8 Alabama. That's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in New Orleans. SMU and the AAC will play Tulane, number 23. Another team still alive for that group of 5 championship. They'll play at Ullman Stadium in New Orleans. Appalachian State will play Troy because James Madison's not allowed to play in the Sun Belt championship game just yet. That game will be in Veterans Memorial Stadium in Troy, Alabama. Michigan will play number 17 Iowa at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. And Louisville will play Florida State at the Bank America Stadium in Charlotte. There's one to be determined and I'm having trouble figuring out who it is. Let me go to the standings. What league did I not represent? Somebody's having a hard time with their tiebreaker, I'm thinking. Who the heck is it? I think I might have, I got to go backwards here. Now we're going to move on to some NFL. Shit. Excuse my French. I know that's not French turf, by the way. AAC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10, Conference USA we got, Mid-American we got. Oh, the Mountain West is still undecided. I don't think they can figure out their tiebreaker. They got 3 teams, Boise State, San Jose, and UNLV, who just very evenly matched. Air Force took themselves out of this. They were undefeated until 4 weeks ago. I think they've lost 4 games in a row now. Just a bad, or 3 out of 4 at least. Just a bad finish for Air Force and Coach Calhoun. Took themselves right out of this, but I think they're having trouble figuring out the tiebreaker between these 3 teams. There was a couple of those situations. So there's your conference championships with the Mountain West still up in the air. One team NC State loves is Alabama and Notre Dame. Fair enough, Kenny, by the way. Let's be fair. You talk about money, you talk about Alabama. Let's not leave Notre Dame out of this. They're not in play this year. I understand that. But historically, Notre Dame gets the benefit of the doubt. So let's not forget that. It is about money. We know that. You're sort of like when he goes to baseball. Touche. Kenny would like to see Major League Baseball eliminated. Let's move on. We'll move on. Before the fights break out. Where was I? So college football, we can go back if you guys want to talk about it, but let's jump into some, whoops, that's not it. Let's jump into some NFL. The NFL hits week 12. This past week has been very interesting. We found out about a fight after the Steeler game last week. A heated spat is what ESPN called it. I heard it was a fight between Deontay Johnson and Minkah Fitzpatrick in the locker room. Had to be broken up. I heard that punches were thrown, and I think there's a problem here between this. This team may have they fired Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator this week, but I don't know how that's going to help the offense when your quarterbacks are as bad as my quarterbacks. Pickett has not played well. Trubisky has not played well when he's been in there. So I'm not really sure how this is going to help anything. But maybe it shows the team's got some fire, and somehow this team is in play. We're going to go around the league, look at the games. We're going to look at some coaches maybe in trouble. But right now we want to look at the news. And Drew, I know that when we get to baseball, I have 3 rest in peace for you today that we'll talk about a little bit. So I did not forget that. I talked about it a little bit, I think, at the top. And I know I had it in the preview. And I talked about it on the MLB show on Sunday. The Jets with another horrible it doesn't matter who plays quarterback. Boyle's going to stay the quarterback until Rodgers comes back, if he comes back. He says December 10th. If this season's gone, why you, again, knowing who Aaron Rodgers is, I guess I know why, but why come back and risk, injuring yourself further where you hurt your chances of beginning next year, and being able to go through OTAs and training camp full force. But Aaron Rodgers, again, he's got a mentality where he's going to say, I did it, where nobody else could do it. Cam Akers came back from this injury as fast as anybody. I think it was 5.5 months, if I remember. And I think Rodgers wants to show he can do it faster. It's just this mentality. And again, it is in this case, this would be all his ego and nothing to do with the team. The exact reasons I have a problem with Aaron Rodgers. Now, if they're still alive, if they can find a way to win a game or 2 here before he comes back, potentially comes back, well, then fine. What else? Jefferson's out again for Minnesota this week. Another season-ending injury for a player at Meadowlands when Jalen Phillips suffers a season-ending Achilles injury, torn Achilles. By the way, I didn't tear my Achilles. I ruptured my Achilles, and I'm not a professional athlete. This is in 2008. I was working from home for 5.5 months, much less getting ready to play football. I was in a cast for 3 months. So again, I don't understand how that's going to actually happen. But what happened last week quickly in the NFL? We'll go through these games quickly. I know the Patriots had their best week of the year last week, not playing. We were happy to see that, and they get to play the great Giants this week. Last week, obviously, the big news was Joe Burrow got hurt in the Thursday night game, and they lost to the Ravens. I think the Bengals are going to rally a little bit. I do think this team is good enough. I like him at home this week, getting points against the Browns. We'll talk about that coming up. Browns did beat the Steelers 13-10. Then we had this fight afterwards. Interesting, they went with Dorian Thompson Robinson, the rookie out of UCLA. He didn't play horribly, didn't play great, and the Bears defense finds a way to win this. Bears got a really good defense, and now they may be the only team. And with the criminally complicit quarterback out, I might even be able to root for them a little bit. Last week, the Lions, we know they lost this week. They did beat the Bears. They had a rally to beat the Bears in this game. They were down 12 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter and came back and won this game. The Packers, with Jordan Love playing really well last week, playing really well this week against the Lions. Against the Chargers have not, record-wise, this is not impressive, but it is not a bad defense. There's talent all over that defense and offense. And Jordan Love has maybe his best game as a pro until this past week, which we'll talk about in a second. Raiders lose again to the Dolphins. I don't see any way that Antonio Pierce keeps that job full time. The Giants and the Commanders lose and give up 31 points. Jack Del Rio fired. We talked about this, I think, on Friday's Are You Serious show. He hadn't been fired yet, but shortly after that, he was fired. I think Anthony called for his firing for sure. I'm going to get to some comments here, and before we get into this week's games and talk a little bit about coaches in trouble. The Cowboys, again, great performance last week, great performance this week. Dak Prescott has played very well. I know Kenny doesn't like Dak Prescott. I've had my things to say about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's playing great football. The Cowboys are playing great football. They need to win some playoff games, or we're all going to say the same things. Jaguars continue to play well, beating the Titans. Texans surprising everybody. C.J. Stroud, not his best game. He had 3 interceptions. He only had 1 going into this game, but he did throw for 336 yards with 2 touchdowns to lead this team for basically a comeback win for the Texans in this game. 49ers just dominated the Buccaneers, and they also dominated the Seahawks on Thursday, which we'll talk about in a second. The Bills run over the Jets, and the Jets, it's just ugly. Rams win. Broncos win. Eagles beat the Chiefs in the game of the week. Broncos rallied to win over the Vikings, by the way. I like the Broncos maybe to make the playoffs now. They're really playing good football at the moment. Good enough football at the moment. But there's a lot of bad teams out there. And the Chiefs in the game of the week fall to the Eagles on a late score by the Eagles to win this game in the fourth quarter. What do we got comment-wise about stuff going on? Oh, let's see. Now move let me move this into the correct week, and then we'll get to your comments. You guys have been great today with the comments, by the way. You know how much I love you guys driving this show. Oh, boy. What do we got here? Ironically, Anthony Price still on the NCAA a little bit. One team that we said that. Said that. Anthony to break a tie to do what the movie Friday Night Lights did, and all the coaches coach a flick. Maybe that's what it is. Is that what it is in the Mountain West? I don't know why they haven't got to figure it out yet, but I guess that's what it is. I know there was some very complicated tiebreakers in all the leagues. The Big 12, fortunately, Oklahoma State won out, and there was a chance that there was going to be like a five-way tie. God knows what would have happened then. Boyle was so much better than Wilson. I hope that's an eye roll I see there. Listen. Far be it for me to defend the Jets. Patriots fans don't defend the Jets. But this isn't all Zach Wilson's fault. The offensive line has been atrocious. He has very little time to make decisions back there. I've heard people talk about how he stares down receivers, and I don't see that. I see him looking at his first, second, and third options. Now, that's not to say he always makes his best decision of where to go with the football. But when he has time, he does scan the field. Let's blame some other guys here. This is a great defense, number one. They've given up some big plays. They're on the field way too much. And it's a shame that this team is potentially going to waste this great defense with this atrocious offense. But the line is a joke. The play calling at times is a joke. I know that Daniel Hackett was hired to coach Aaron Rodgers and not Zach Wilson, but they're doing him no favors. And when you sign guys to $44 million contracts like Alan Lazard, and they play like freaking Devontae Parker, to use a reference close to my heart, they drop balls, they run the wrong routes. This isn't all Zach Wilson's fault. It's just not. And Robert Saleh, I'm not sure Robert Saleh can ever figure this out. But he'll get a pass this year because of, you know what? All of Saleh moves are to make Rodgers happy. Won't come back unless they're still alive. I'm not sure, Drew. His ego, regardless of the team's record, and he may not come back and play a lot, but his ego will drive him, in my mind, to come back faster than anybody else. And again, I believe Cam Akers is the fastest guy to ever come back from this in football, I think in 5.5 months. This would be what? October, November, December. Barely 3 months later, he'd be back playing. I was in a cast still. Now, a rupture is different than a tear, and I ruptured mine. But I was in a cast for 3 months after the operation. And again, I'm not a professional athlete anymore. I'm just kidding. I do think he comes back because that's his freaking mentality. The thing I hate about the guy, he's got a me first attitude. Now, I'll give him kudos for being around a team trying to help Zach Wilson. Not sure why they don't play all NFL games on hospital grounds given the injuries this year. Again, I will say one more time, we blame the league does all this stuff. They say they want to protect injuries, players from injuries. They change the rules on kickoffs, and they change the rules on punts, and they change the rules on blocks. And, we're going to go back to all grass fields probably at some point because the turf is so dangerous. And again, those are non-contact injuries, so I really should leave that part out. Guys are going to keep getting injured until you get hit more than just in the games. You can't get hit in OTAs. You can't get hit in training camp except the 10 days you can wear pads. And during the exhibition games, which none of the starters play and get prepared for the season to get hit. You can't hit once the season starts except on game day. And if the NFL Players Association wants to keep doing that type of stuff, then they're hurting their own cause and they're getting their own players hurt. Because guys, again, you guys who played more football than I did should understand that learning how to absorb a hit is a big part of football and keeping yourself healthy enough. I mean, not healthy, but healthy enough not to risk major injuries. You don't see that today. But your point is certainly irrelevant, Drew. Stick to baseball. What is that for? By the way, I had the funniest, a little sidebar here since it is the Stream of Consciousness show. A little sidebar. For some reason, we had some guy on the Are You Serious show pop in. I can't remember his screen name. First time I'd seen him. And the only comment he made and then he left was the guy with no hair looks like he's plotting to take over the world. I don't know what I looked like that day. I don't think I looked a whole lot different. If I look like a guy plotting to take over the world's pretty freaking safe is all I can say. Oh, my God. I didn't shave today either, by the way. Not that you can really tell. We're going to try something new, try to get the Patriots a victory today over the Giants, which we'll talk about in a bit. Let's be real. The Cowboys beating under 500 team like last year. Listen, you can only play the teams on your schedule, Anthony. Again, I hate being teams I don't like. I hate being the defenders of them. But let's take a quick look at who they've beaten. Just for giggles. They haven't beat the Eagles, and I get that, right? Maybe beat the Eagles and teams would have a little more. And again, I'm not saying that they have not beaten up on a lot of not good teams. But by the way, the league's full of not good teams. I can go look at the Ravens schedule or the Redskins schedule. I know you're a Redskins fan. Oh, team formerly known as the Redskins. Excuse me. I don't want to be canceled. So they beat the Giants, they beat the Jets, they beat the Cardinals, they beat the Patriots. Ooh, they lost to the 49ers. They beat the Chargers. Chargers not a bad football team. They're badly coached, but they got some talent. Beat the Rams. I guess I got no argument for this right now. Well, I guess you're going to find out, though. They got the Seahawks coming up next week. They got the Eagles. They got the Bills. They got the Dolphins. They got the Lions. And the Commanders will finish out the season. They win some of those games, the argument's moot. Again, you can only play the teams on your schedule. You know? And Dak's played well. Now, I will say this about the game the other day. Dak played great. The defense wasn't great. We saw Jack Del Rio get fired after the game, or not after the game, but shortly after. The kid Bland, who's a good player, and I talked with Jim Jeffcoat, former great Cowboy lineman, about this morning on the Mac and Jack show. He's a great young player, and I know Stephen Gilmore's on the other side, who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's also not in his prime. So Bland sets a record for pick sixes in a season. But my point's always going to be, you're not getting thrown at. Great cornerbacks don't get thrown at enough to get those types of plays. Deion Sanders, Ty Law, name any guy you want. Mike Haynes, Mark Haynes. Great cornerbacks don't get thrown at enough to have, number one, a lot of interceptions, and number two, certainly not 5 pick sixes in a year. Now, that I don't want to take anything away from Bland, and I guess quarterbacks are making the decision to stay away from Gilmore, and maybe they should throw at him more. But the record is a little bit misleading in my mind. I always take interception leaders with a grain of salt because those guys are getting thrown at a lot for a reason. What else we got here from Jeremy? Coach Everlose in Chicago. Definitely in trouble. By the way, people are down on Fields. Josh Fields, when he's been healthy this year, has played pretty good. He's got 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, runs the ball very well. In the NFL of today, he's a valuable commodity. And Everlose, which I like that name, is not going to be around to see it. And it's going to be very interesting to see what the Bears do this year. If they have a first or second pick, do they decide to move Josh Fields for another number one pick? And there's teams that want him. There's rumors my team wants him. I like Justin Fields. I might have said Josh Fields again. I keep saying that, but Justin Fields, he's going to develop into a very good quarterback. Is he going to be as good as Jalen Hurts? I don't know. But he's going to be better, and he's already better than half the freaking quarterbacks in the league. Cowboys can really can only roll over bad teams a lot like Miami. I've got more confidence in the Cowboys than I do in the Dolphins. I just, but again, your comments are understood. Stick to high school. I love Ricard. What's the high school comment for? Well, what's that one for? What's the bigger loss? Quarterback. What's the bigger loss? Green Bay over Detroit, Cards over Cowboys. Probably the Cards over the Cowboys, yes. Because again, Green Bay's playing better. They've got a veteran coach. They got a quarterback who's coming into his own. They played good defense. Lions helped them. The Lions put them in the situation to score. I believe they had the ball like 4 times in the first half, turned the ball over 4 times in the first half inside, at least 3 times inside the 50. But the Cowboys were playing the Cardinals without their quarterback, with a rookie head coach, looking like the worst team in football at the time. So definitely that's the worst loss. Again, I'm not going to argue. Again, I can only play the teams on my schedule. That's a bad loss. Not a division loss in the sense that it's a division loss. If you want to look at it just from a sense of who you're losing to, obviously losses in your division are worse than losses just in a conference, and non-conference losses, like the Chiefs losing to the Eagles, really aren't going to amount to a hill of beans at the end of the year, most likely. Tim to Jeremy, are you sure you're not? You sound like head in Columbus now. I got to have you on the show more. I think Columbus carried us last week with some interesting stuff. I hope Ed's okay today, by the way. I thought Ed'd be in with us this morning, and I have not seen him yet. So I hope he is okay after that Ohio State loss yesterday. Anyway, let me go back here. Danny DeVito. We call him Danny. We don't even put the Tommy in there. I'm just going to start calling him Louis De Palma. All they need now is a cheerleader named Typhoid Mary. That's what I call it in that life. And tuberculosis. I don't get it. Did he have tuberculosis? I missed something with tuberculosis joke. Ohio State has 2 losses, and of course they have 1 loss. Of course they'll be behind Alabama and Texas. They play 1 instead of a bowl. They may play 1 instead of a bowl. I think he's laughing. Ohio State doesn't have 2 losses. They only have 1. If they should have more than 1. Any? Sorry. If Rodgers comes back, it'll be fun to watch him get crushed again. Oh, man, we got an angry crowd today. Well, Jeremy says MetLife is is a field of knees and Achilles, by the way. Hello, Alec. Good to have you with us, buddy. We need to expand the team numbers. I hope you're talking about college. We don't need more NFL teams. Not when half of them are awful now, which we'll talk about in a second. Oh, isn't that the guy suing me? Who? Basement Bob. Who'd you say, Kenny? Who did I miss? Basement Bob's the guy who threatened to sue me for my playoff expansion vlog. It's not like I made up the idea myself. It'd only been expounded on like 1 million times by other people. Maybe he's suing everybody who ever brought it up. Or maybe he just got the internet in his mom's basement. I don't know. Chargers are trash. Well, the roster's not trash. The coaching staff is trash. Regardless of what that roster looks like on paper, they are the record. I agree. Again, you know what? My favorite fat bastard, not my favorite fat bastard, the guy I hate probably more than any coach in the NFL history, one Bill Parcells, a.k.a. the fat bastard. He's a great coach and a horrible person. But he said one thing similar to what Jeremy's paraphrasing here is, you are what your record says you are. I get it. Chargers have talent all over that field. Where's the problem lie? On the sideline. Watch out, because there's a lot of rumors about the greatest coach in the history of football. Say what you want. Heading that way. Lester Hayes, another one. Lester Hayes intercepted a lot of balls, though. Great player. He had stick them all over. I mean, you just put up a finger. He just put up one finger and a ball would stick to it. Remember him just covered with pine tar from head to toe. Great. Yeah, except for us old guys, nobody will know who the hell that is. If you up big, why not sit Dak and try and play Trey Lance? You traded for him to what? Sell jerseys? If you don't play him in the last 3 games, or the last game, it's a waste of a trade. Why? I mean, you have your quarterback. It's not like you're looking for a quarterback. I mean, I don't feel the need. And again, depending on what the situation is, you're not going to play him now when you're still, in a hunt. Theoretically, you're still in the division hunt. You're still certainly looking for home field advantage in the playoffs. I don't think Trey Lance is selling a lot of jerseys. Maybe they assigned him just to get the 49er playbook. I don't know, which didn't help him any, right? But he's a project. He's a guy who's got to have his confidence rebuilt. It's going to be very similar to Mac Jones. Wherever Mac Jones ends up, he's going to have to sit for a while, rebuild his confidence, and maybe he can be a serviceable NFL quarterback. Maybe the same thing can happen for Trey Lance. Right now, Trey Lance just needs to watch and learn. Actually, why? My team was great for 20 years, basically, and they never did that. Or rarely did it. I mean, in blowouts, Tom Brady being there till the last series. In games that meant nothing, the starters started, because you have to keep players on a routine. And again, your record's not good enough at 7-3 to say play the backups. You can't just give games away, Anthony. There's a time you might want to play these guys. I don't really care about playing my backups, to be honest with you. I want my starters to get as many reps as they can. Now, there were times, and that's not to say there were times when Patriots were up by 40 points. I'm like, why are you out there, Tommy? This Thursday, the Cowboys have the opportunity to beat a team with more than 14 wins. Cowboys taking it rough here. Tampa Bay. TB, I don't know if that's Tampa Bay. Yeah, I know you're saying TB was the reason. I'm sure you're saying that we won 6 Super Bowls because of TB. I'll tell you now. It's funny. What's really funny is, and again, I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, Jeremy. I'm extrapolating from the shortness of your comment. Actually, let me look for a different one. No, I don't see it. So if that's what you were talking about, I don't know if we are. Let me just say something. I think it's hilarious that all the time Tom Brady was excelling in Foxborough, his detractors would say, oh, he's just a system. It's the system. It's the system. It's not Tom Brady. It's the system. And then when he goes and he wins another Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, and Bill Belichick struggles for the last couple of years. He did it when go to the playoffs, by the way, with a rookie quarterback 2 years ago. But he's made some bad personnel decisions. He hasn't lost it as a coach. He's lost it as a personnel man. I can tell you that. But now it's a coach. Now it was Brady. It was Brady. It was Brady. It was Brady. It was never Belichick. It's both, guys. They both needed each other. Tom Brady said as much. It's hilarious. Haters will find a new reason to hate and even change the thing they hate to fit their own narrative. When he was here and excelling, it wasn't Tom. It was the system. Then when he's gone, the system always sucked. Belichick always sucked. It was Brady. Same people. Hilarious. Oh, that was an ugly injury, by the way. I can't remember the kid's name. I saw it. It was not pretty. I was glad to see the kid was, at least I thought it was something else that happened to him originally. But it was that's a bad injury to come back from. Offensive lineman and one of the leaders on that Michigan team, and they'll miss him. I mean, again, I don't think that's enough to give Iowa a fighting chance in that game. But it'll hurt Michigan come the playoff. Stick to high school is about stick to baseball comment. About the ball guy. That was too funny. I don't know. The guy just came out of nowhere and accused me of being a supervillain. Aren't supervillains usually smart? I'm not sure why I look like I was plotting to take over the world. I look at basically like I do now. TB. TB. Sorry. We're not being in the medical field or really having much medical discussion on my show, Jeremy. I do know now. Now that you put it together, I get it. TB. I do need security, right? I got guys stalking me now. Rick, I'm a little concerned about my safety. Breaking news, Indiana head coach fired. Tom Allen out. I'm not surprised there. I've been talking about that pretty much in the college football huddle every week. Tom Allen had one good year at Indiana, really. That was the COVID year. They finished 12th in the country that year. With Michael Penix Jr. as his quarterback, by the way. Good defensive coach. The offense has always been pretty atrocious there. Indiana's just, again, it's a tough place to win. It's a tough place to win in the Big Ten. Paul Krause. I follow on Facebook, and he does a lot of posting, selling of memorabilia and stuff. I tried to get him, again, I haven't done interviews in a while since my good friend Dan Harris who was basically setting up some interviews for me because I didn't have time. I will when I retire. We're probably going to have to put that out for a while. But I've been trying to get Paul Krause. He's another guy who wants to get paid to come on. So, but great player. But again, I still will say the best cornerbacks. And was Paul Krause a cornerback or a safety, by the way? I don't know why, and Rick would know this for sure. I feel like Paul Krause was a safety. I could be wrong. I'm guessing. My memory is not always that good. But great player. Fifth highest selling jersey among active players right now, Trey Lance. Oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Why? What? I'm confused. Too early to sit player. Well, I absolutely way too early to sit players now. I mean, in blowouts, whatever. Pick'em update. Rick is only 1 point behind the leader. Good job, Rick. Drew's treading water, tied for ninth. That's almost drowning like I am. I'm reaching for your ankles to try to pull myself up. Keith is still in second to last out of 16 pickers. I've changed my strategy now, Drew. I'm trying to pick losers. Just as hard. That's not true. You know, it's amazing. I've had a tremendous season so far. Well, this weekend's not off to a great start in the cigar box, but I lead the way in winnings in the cigar box. And now I probably jinxed myself. But so my overall picks, and college has really carried me. I mean, I didn't have a good weekend. I went 1 for 3 yesterday. The only game I won was the over in North Carolina State. And I bet Ohio State plus 3.5 and Louisville. I did win on I got a push on Ole Miss Thursday and Friday. Can't remember what happened Friday. Anyway, we've had a good season, even in the NFL. Usually, I bet 3, unless there's weird week like this week where there's games spread out. You can only bet X amount of money, so I bet 3 college games and 3 pro games. So there's been plenty of weeks where college has carried me, or there's plenty of weeks where pros have carried me. So my best bets have done well. But overall, and I'm blaming a lack of game. I mean, these freaking games are atrocious, absolutely atrocious. So I don't spend a lot of time. All I do is just go pick. Spend very little time. Oops. I pull out a handful of games that I like. And then the rest of them, it's just pick winners. Zach Zinkter, thank you. One of the leaders of that team. Safety for Krause. Thank you for that. Thought I was right. Thank you, Rick. Once in a while, the mind clicks, right? You're 3-1 so far this week. Good. I think, and I don't know what I am in the pros. We'll look at the schedule here in a second. Paul and I chuckle when your picks don't go well. I don't. I've had a good year, and I'm up a decent amount of money. I was up. It's funny because I was probably in a similar spot last year, and I had a swoon just about now. I ended up losing money for the year, so I went pretty bad the rest of the year. So I probably just jinxed myself as well. Patrick is saving you on fantasy football. He is, but not enough. I mean, my record is not good in any of the leagues. I play in 2 leagues that are worth some money. And I have Patrick in one and Josh Allen in the other. And I am just similar. Well, actually, I guess I'm all right in the TGI Sports Talk League because of the divisions. The other 2 leagues don't have divisions, and I'm like right now I'm on the outside of the playoffs looking in with just a couple of weeks to go before the playoffs start. So I need to win 2 in a row in both of them, and one of them's worth a bundle of money. So that's the one I really concentrate the most on. But yes, Mahomes has certainly been a saving grace most weeks for sure. Let me take a quick look around the state. That's what I want to talk about here in football. I do want to get to a couple of quick baseball notes, mostly a couple of passings. I do want to comment about the NBA a little bit, why we're playing in-season tournament and all that, but we're running out of time. So let me go around. You know what? I'm just going to go through the today's games. Let's look at the games that have already been played, by the way, first. Why don't we do that? And I'll make some comments about coaches in trouble and whatnot before then. So a coach that might have been in trouble in LaFleur in Green Bay, I think the last couple of weeks, I think he's doing a good job. And I think he might have been in trouble. But with Jordan Love now starting to look like an NFL quarterback, I know it's only a couple of weeks, but he's played pretty well. Great win, as we've talked about, for the Packers. Even if you want to say the Lions pretty much kicked the game away. The Cowboys, 45-10 over the Commanders. We know what happened there. Bland sets a record. Prescott has a tremendous game against a bad team. I get it. And they fired their defense coordinator, Jack Del Rio, just a first. What's the point of firing your defense? Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. In Pittsburgh, if they fire Matt Canada, what's going to change? You don't have a quarterback, so you're not going to play any better. The Seahawks were just dominated at home. I like the Seahawks this year, and they were just dominated at home. I don't think the score was as close as 31-13. Again, they kept turning the ball over. I mean, they had 0 yards offense, like in the middle of the second quarter. And this shows you Brock Purdy, when he has all of those weapons healthy, he's like the best quarterback in football statistically. 75% of his passes he completes, and like a 118 QB rating. It's a lot worse when they're not all healthy. I like Brock Purdy, but he's a guy who can't carry that team on his own. Sorry, Alec. I like the guy. Just can't carry the team on his own. The Dolphins 34-13 over the Jets. We all know what went on here. It's going to be an interesting race for the MVP of the of football. Patrick Mahomes always going to be in a conversation. McCaffrey's got to be in a conversation. Jalen Hurts will probably be in a conversation. There's people that want Watt to be in a conversation because Pittsburgh being alive is because of that defense, and he's a tremendous force there. And I think Tua will warrant some conversation as well. Looking at these games, so who else? Are any of those coaches in trouble? Nobody in the 49ers or the Seahawks. Pete Carroll's not getting fired. McCarthy, well, I'm sure I'll get a Fred Flintstone soon. Maybe, depending on what happens in the playoffs, he could have an issue. Today's games, we'll go through quickly so we can get to your comments. Patriots over the Giants. I'll take the Patriots. I'm not picking against them. Both these teams stink. Patriots a 4-point favorite on the road is probably stupid. I will not be betting this game. I'll give you my bets here in a second. The Saints, another road favorite, 2.5 over the Falcons. I'm going to take the points at home with Falcons. The Steelers and the Bengals. Bengals getting 2.5 at home. I'm taking the Bengals. I know Burrow's out. I know it's an inexperienced quarterback, but that kid's no worse than the two guys playing for Pittsburgh. I think the Bengals rise up and try to keep this team alive in the playoffs race. I'll take the Titans minus 3.5 over the Panthers. Let's see. I was talking about coaches. We know Bill Belichick's situation. Probably going to be parting ways with the Patriots after the season, but it's not a sure thing. And they'll probably be looking for a draft pick if he wants to go coach somewhere else. The Saints coach, I think, could be in trouble. Falcons coach, Arthur Smith, could be in trouble. Panthers, Frank Reich's probably in trouble. I like the Titans today. And Mike Vrabel is probably in trouble as well. Buccaneers, Lovie Smith's probably in trouble. I like the Colts to win this game today. Jaguars and Texans, nobody in trouble here today. I will take the Jaguars on the road. I don't like to give points on the road, but it's not a lot. It's a game in it. It's 1.5. That's going to be a bet for me, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think I'm betting the Broncos -2 against the Browns. Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals over the Rams -3. I'll take the Chiefs obviously over the Raiders. The Eagles, I'll take over the Bills. The Bills, you got to beat somebody better than the Jets to make me think the ship is righted there. And I'm going to continue. I'm not betting them. I'll take the Chargers at home against the Ravens. And then Monday night, the Vikings over the Bears. So who did I give you as my bets? I'm going to take the Broncos. I'm going to take the Chargers. I'm sorry, the Jaguars. And I'm going to also bet. Where's the other game I wanted to bet? Might have been an over. No, I guess it's going to be the Vikings on Monday night. So what do we got here comment-wise before we move on here? Yeah, I was going to get to I'll come back to that, Jeremy. That was one of my baseball comments I want to talk about. Willie Hernandez, he talks about rest in peace, Willie Hernandez. I do want to say a few words about Willie Hernandez and Ron Hodges and also Chief Nakahoma. Mercole, Hardiman placed on the IR, Tony out, drop passes, go away. Still the best team in the AFC, by the way. All this happens. These injuries happen all the time. People write off the Chiefs. And next thing you know, they're in the Super Bowl winning it. Andy Reid has really, really risen up the ranks of great coaches, I can tell you right now. I belittled Andy Reid for years for his clock management, game management, and playoff games, including a Super Bowl against the Patriots. And that's all changed. Marshawn Lattimore put on the IR. Hurts the Saints big time. Yes, it does. I don't like the Saints. The Saints are not a good football team. If they didn't play in the NFC South, we wouldn't even be talking about them having any chance. And if they make the playoffs, Derek Carr doesn't win playoff games. He should have beat the Bengals a couple years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. And on 4th and goal, he doesn't even get the ball to the end zone at the end of the game. That's classic Derek Carr. Come up small as possible in the biggest moments. Kyron Williams, and I back off IR for the Rams. I had him on some of my rosters, and I dropped him recently, but I got running backs don't win for you anymore. Unless you got McCaffrey. I will say, I do want to bring up this, and we can go back to football if you guys have more football stuff, but I want to say a couple of things. And I got to add Chief Nakahoma, which I found out about this morning. So Willie Hernandez and Ron Hodges both passed away this year. Willie Hernandez is an interesting example of a player in the major leagues who kicked around for 7-8 years with the Cubs and with the Phillies. Gets to Detroit in 1984. Again, after being a journeyman, never been the go-to guy in a bullpen, never even had 10 saves, I don't think, in a year, or any amount of wins or real consistency. Had a lot of talent. He gets to Detroit, and he wins the AL MVP and the Cy Young in the same year in a dream season for the Tigers, which I'm sure Jeremy remembers. Well, if you're old enough, Jeremy. Remembers very well. I remember it very well. I remember the San Diego Tiger World Series very well. Greg Nettles, one of my favorite Yankees of all time, was playing on that team, so I was kind of rooting. And Goose Gossage was there, so I was kind of rooting for the Padres. As much as I can root for a team that's not mine, it's very hard for me, unless I have money on it. But Willie Hernandez had 3 great seasons, including that one. Went to the All-Star game 3 years in a row. Just became a great player overnight. And I'm sure holds a great place in the hearts of Tiger fans, as they haven't been anywhere close to the World Series since then. I'm sorry, take that back. They did go with Jim Leland. No, I take that back. They have been there. They did not win. But Willie Hernandez was tremendous in that season. And we wish his family the best in this very difficult time. And Ron Hodges, much lesser known than Willie Hernandez, most likely. Somebody might be going, who the hell's Willie Hernandez? Ron Hodges played his entire career mostly as a backup. He did have 1 year where he played a lot after John Stearns had an injury, but played his entire career, I want to say 11 years or so with the Mets. I think in his debut, he caught a shutout from Tom Seaver in 1973. He had a couple of big moments in that pennant drive for the Mets in 1973. Not related to Gil Hodges, by the way. And we wish his family the best. And we found out this morning that Chief Nakahoma, who was the Braves mascot for many a year until that became politically incorrect, Sorry. I always need some coffee when these things come up. Anyway, he passed away. Gosh, he must have been an old timer, by the way. How old was he? Yeah, I don't have it in this here. Some interesting moves too this week. We're waiting on, and when it comes to baseball, I'm going to talk about that, and we'll get to your comments about baseball, NFL. Finish it up with whatever you want. I was going to try to get to couple of things on my mind. We got baseball free agency ready to start. I don't think the real big moves will start till Ohtani signs somewhere. You'll see, similar to the manager situation with Council. I think you'll see that'll be the linchpin. Although you've had a couple. Aaron Nolan signed with the Phillies for 7 years for $172 million at 30 years old will show you that these guys are never going to learn their lesson. Never. These owners and GMs always fall into the same trap. And it's going to set, a market for other guys that are, and Aaron Nolan's is not a bad pitcher, but he's not a great pitcher. Diamondbacks bring in Eduardo Suarez, who hits home runs. It doesn't fit what they do at all. Classic 220 hitter and 20 home runs. Big deal. Plays a little third base. I mean, he better than what they had. Evan Longoria is gone. But he doesn't fit anything else they do. One of the reasons I liked watching this team through the playoffs was the way they played the game. Not 3 true outcomes. Put the ball in play. Move runners. And Paul DeJong signs with the White Sox. Also, the NBA playing in-season tournament. I don't even understand the whole freaking thing. They're playing on these courts that give me a freaking epileptic fit. The games count in the regular standings until they don't. When we get into, I don't know, December something, once these early rounds are played and they settle on the teams that they're going to play in the semis, and the Knicks are doing very well in this tournament, by the way. I don't think the games will count in the standing. So I don't understand the whole freaking thing, why you have to do it, why you have to confuse things. Kenny Gifford will probably say it's money, and he's probably right. Because nobody cares about the NBA in November or December. It's behind college football. It's behind professional football. And it's just another gimmick that the league doesn't need. And the college football or college basketball standings, the only thing I wanted to point out there real quick, and if this elicits any conversation, any of this elicits any conversation, we'll take your comments here in a second. College basketball's been underway for a couple of weeks now. No surprises at the top as you've got Kansas, Purdue, and Arizona. Marquette, the surprise last year, up there. UConn up there. Houston, Tennessee, Creighton, Duke are your top 10, and Miami are your top 10. All good teams last year. Last year's sleeper, Florida Atlantic, is in the top 25 at number 19, 2-1. James Madison, who is not moving into Division I basketball this year. They've been playing Division I basketball for a long time. Lefty Driesell coached there years ago. They're 4-0 and in the top 22. They're number 22 in the top 25. So some interesting stuff. Colorado in the top 25 interests me. Carolina is 3-0 and then is in the top 15. Texas A&M under Buzz Peterson is 4-0 at 12. So mostly they're playing these holiday tournaments and whatnot. We don't get into league play till after the first of the year, but I thought I'd just touch on college basketball a little bit, which we'll do more in the college sports huddle after football is over. And maybe we'll sneak a little in during the bowl season. The Cardinals, for youth and quality, Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Lance Lynn looks as much as like me. I would look in a Major League Baseball uniform as anybody in the game these days. And he was not very good with the White Sox last year. He was not very good with the Dodgers for the most part. He gets $10 million for a year. I wish He's going to stink. And Kyle Gibson is, in tremendous shape compared to him. Give Sparky Anderson credit for putting Hernandez in at closer. If Sparky is a great manager, one of the few to win World Series in both leagues. Sparky turned things around with that Tiger franchise, and we're not very good when Sparky got there. The Reds never should have fired Sparky. I'm sure they regretted it very quickly because the first year that he was gone, they made the playoffs under John McNamara, but after that, they went into a wasteland for a while. For the most part, I mean, they had a year here and there, but they missed Sparky, and Sparky revitalized the Tigers. Sparky Anderson, I still think he's in a Hall of Fame, but people don't talk about Sparky when we talk about great managers enough. Sparky was very, very good. And kudos to him for seeing some the potential in Willie Hernandez and turning him into the closer. And closers, by the way, still at that time were not just I want to start the ninth inning with nobody on base, and it's the only way I want to come in. I remember a very important moment in that World Series, guys, because Goose Gossage came from the Yankees, I think that year. Him and Nettles both came that year in 1984. And we're a big part of that San Diego pennant winner in the NL. But there was a point in Game 5, which the Tigers won to wrap up the series, which I believe the score was tied, a couple men on, and Kirk Gibson's coming up. First base is open, and Gossage won't walk him. He wants to pitch to him because of his machismo, right? And if you watch the highlight films of that World Series, you see Sparky talking to Gibson from the dugout, going, "He don't want to walk you." Stupid move, because Gibson hit one to the moon, and that was the end of that series. But I remember that very, very well. Kirk Gibson had a couple of big home runs in the World Series. He had another one that you might remember against the Dodgers. Or I'm sorry, against the A's as a Dodger. Nobody cares about the NBA ever. Well, I still care about the Knicks. But again, when it comes to the NBA, once the playoffs start, I've got some interest, but I can't sit here and watch regular season games for 5 months that mean nothing when half the league makes the playoffs. Even the NHL. I mean, NHL playoffs in NHL is a much better than a regular season. And the NBA, grasping for too many straws in this type of thing. Got to get ready to wrap it up. We got a few more questions. Went to college with Sparky Anderson's grandmother. What? How's that possible? How is it possible you went to Sparky? Kenny, Sparky Anderson had to be 30 years older than you, so his grandmother had to be 60 years older than you. How could you have gone to college with him? I hope you get an answer in here. Mark Robert Shug, good morning. Mark pops in late. Sparky had the quick hook. Captain Hook, they called him in Cincinnati for sure. Captain Hook. All right, we got to get ready to wrap it up. I hope Kenny can tell me, and if you can't, please put in the comments anyway, Kenny, so I can see it later, how you could possibly have gone to college with Sparky's grandmother. I'm sorry. Actually, his grandmother had to be 90 years older, 60 years older than you. Oh, God. Anyway, guys, thanks. Great show. Great job by you guys. As always on Sunday, we'll be back with the College Football Huddle on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be back with Are You Serious? And then the Sunday Stream of Consciousness next week. Then we got a few